Minnesota Vikings up next to wrap up the NFC North, coming off of a huge season. They're one game away from the number one overall seed in Minnesota.
What a bizarre year.
Is the over-under only 8.5 for them? We talked about this a few weeks ago. That's the J.J. McCarthy.
The drag factor of the unknown at quarterback.
We didn't know how it was going to play out, but I'll say Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the general manager for the Vikings, if per my numbers here, if you look at value added to the team, like what from non-draft picks over the last couple of years, the Vikings are number one. And even if you just let's just think about what they've brought to the team between Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel off the edge, and the way they've worked their cornerback room when they've needed to, they've brought a ton of value in. TJ Hockenson trade a couple of years ago from non-draft picks, and that's put them into not only playoff contention, but team that could have gone on a Super Bowl run if things, Sam Darnold didn't collapse down the stretch. They've built a good enough roster that Sam Darnold could go out there and put up this incredible season and, sign a big contract with Seattle. So, yeah, I think it's been an interesting run, I think, for Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell, where it's not a build through the draft operation at the moment, either in volume or in actual hit rate, but they've built, I think, one of the deepest rosters in the NFL over these last couple of years.
It is a very complicated analysis for Kwesi, because I think you're right. In terms of free agents and those types of things, he's done a really good job. I don't know how much credit you can give him for the Sam Darnold thing on the basis that it was theoretically just a bridge quarterback signing who somehow put in an insane season out of nowhere. I'm not sure that was a realistic prediction. I know it was, because there's a bunch of psychotic Sam Darnold stands that were always like, he always had this in him. It was the Jets the whole time, right? Even though it would have been the Jets and then the Panthers and then, anyway. So there's always there's a bunch of people that always had faith in Sam Darnold. I still don't think that was realistic heading into last year. But then also you add in the draft and you're like, well, his first draft was almost a disaster in terms of Lewis Cine didn't look like he was going to be an amazing pick, and then had a very early catastrophic injury that probably changed the course of his career. Second pick was Andrew Booth Jr., a corner who's been a disaster and is now on to different teams. Second draft, Jordan Addison, first round. That looks really good. Mekhi Blackmon could be really good. He was looking good before he got injured, and now he's a bit of a question mark. Kind of it from that year. And then last year you've got J.J. McCarthy. There's so many of these picks where you have to immediately put an incomplete on them because of injury. J.J. McCarthy, an incomplete. The trade up for Dallas Turner, we didn't see that much from him, so that's a big year from him. So not a lot has come from the drafts. Quite a lot has come from free agency, and then you have this weird dynamic of last season was almost like this time a year ago, really, almost exactly. We started training camp. McCarthy gets hurt. It was preseason. He, goes from, his knee's a bit sore to actually he's done for the year within 24 hours. And at that point, I go on Matthew Collar's show and I'm like, it's basically a write-off year for Minnesota. It's they'll probably win, the same standard 6, 7, 8 games, but it's a waste of time now because the season just went up in smoke. And then Darnold has an amazing year right up until the death, and then chokes, collapses, capitulates, the whole thing spirals out of control, and they move on from him.
And that's where I think the combination of Kwesi and then Kevin O'Connell, we talk about head coaches and having multiple opportunities to have different types of quarterbacks and win. Kevin O'Connell has now elevated Kirk Cousins to his best season as far as wins and losses go. He's brought Sam Darnold back and had that massive season last year, 14-3, and now Katie do it with J.J. McCarthy, right? And if there's more evidence of that, Kevin O'Connell, I'm going to start putting him into this Kyle Shanahan. Not that you can make every quarterback great. Like Kyle Shanahan didn't make Trey Lance great, but he's elevated a lot of quarterbacks statistically, and O'Connell has a chance to do that now with J.J. McCarthy. And I think part of the Sam Darnold analysis, it goes back to the team building effort. They dropped him into Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hockenson as a trio of pass catchers. That helps quite a bit. The offensive line had their issues last year, especially on the interior. Really nice group of pair of tackles with Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill. They lost Darrisaw, replaced him with Cam Robinson, but the interior was an issue. But now coming into this year, you bring in Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, both from the Colts, theoretically shoring up 2 of those starting spots, and then Donovan Jackson with your first-round pick. I just think they continue to add talent on both sides of the ball. We'll talk about the defense in a minute, but I think J.J. McCarthy now, with his redshirt-ish type of year, dropped into this situation where the O-line looks good, the playmakers might be the best group in the NFL, or at least a top 3 group. He is set up for success.
Yeah, it's a great situation for him. There's no doubting that. Between the playmakers they've got, there's talent in the backfield. Kevin O'Connell is a fantastic coach. On paper, the offensive line could be one of the best units in the NFL. Now, the only caveat there is, we know there is power to just continuity, which means almost the reverse of that is true as well. Just because you upgraded on paper at 3 different spots doesn't mean you're not going to lose something by the lack of continuity in those 3 different spots. Like, every single player on that offensive line will now be playing effectively next to somebody new. Even the 2 guys from the Colts were not playing together for a lot of that time. So it's a very new unit on the offensive line, even if it's better on paper. It might not be as good as people think it will be just because it's going to take some time to gel. But in theory, that's an amazing situation for a young quarterback to step into. Plus, the defense was A, nasty last year, and B, has had a lot of upgrades as well. So the defense could be amazing. The one, not caveat, but the one sort of question mark. So you're like, look, it's a great spot for a young quarterback to come in, hit the ground running, and be amazing and repeat what Sam Darnold did. The one thing that's a little bit different, though, is, like, remember what J.J. McCarthy looked like in Michigan, where it was like, at times it was almost a joke how little they let him pass the ball. Yeah. It's like, we're going to run the ball, we're going to dominate, we're so good, you're just a glorified handoff merchant. You barely need to do anything. The ideal Harbaugh game for J.J. McCarthy was like, 17 for 21 or whatever, right? If you look at what Darnold had to do last year, it wasn't that, right? Every game except 2, he had more than 30 dropbacks. In 6 games, he had more than 40 dropbacks, and in 1 game, he had 50. McCarthy's basically never done that. So that's the one thing we don't know is whatever about his efficiency and his poise and his accuracy and all those kinds of things, we don't really know what happens if you ask him to drop back 40 times a game more than once.
Yeah. I mean, you go back to your pre-draft. What did you think of J.J. McCarthy? Good athlete, throws well on the run, like the way he maneuvered the pocket, goes through reads, never had to carry the team. Right. And not only that, but I go back to that Penn State game that year, literally didn't throw the ball in the second half of the game against Penn State.
10 dropbacks in the game.
Yes, and there's elements of, they were so loaded on the offensive line and with their running back room, and that's how they wanted to win. The other hand, okay, fine. Even if that's the case, even if it's only because the rest of his teammates. It's not necessarily an indictment.
Yeah,
no, it's not saying you haven't seen it. It's because you haven't seen it.
It's not saying like they believed in him so little that they never let him throw the ball.
It doesn't have to be that. Right.
It's simply because they did that, even if it had nothing to do with J.J. McCarthy, it means that we have no idea what happens if you say, for the next 3 weeks, you're going to be passing the ball on average 42 times a game. We've no idea what that looks like for him.
Hey guys, real quick, only 40% of our viewers are actually subscribed, so let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and now let's get back to the action. So, look, I can't wait to see that one too. I get so excited at this time of year because all of these storylines, as a fan, I want to see how this unfolds. But the Vikings are set up. I mean, J.J. McCarthy might be in the best situation a young quarterback's been in a long time, including the redshirt year, the year to learn that we always talk about. Well, Mahomes had it, and Brady had it, and Drew Brees had it, and you go back through the list. Aaron Rodgers had it, and it doesn't mean it always works. Carson Palmer had it. You just remember all the guys who had that pretty much full season or more to sit and learn. Well, J.J. McCarthy has it. Another data point in the do you sit the quarterback even if it's because of injury. So we had that. Andy's got this theoretical good line, great group of pass catchers in KOC running the show. Defensively, I love this story too. I mean, you've got a defense that's been crazy aggressive, blitzing out of this world, and Brian Flores, changing the game, his own unique style that no other defense is really employing around the NFL. And we thought it may have just been because it was personnel driven in 2023 because they had no pass rushers. Then they loaded up on pass rushers last year, still did it. and they've loaded up on more pass rushers this year. So I think on paper, this is probably the best defense Brian Flores has had. Does he still, keep coming after defenses, coming after offenses and keeping them off balance with this group?
Yeah, it's a fascinating group. I'd kind of forgotten until watching that Jared Goff Netflix thing that, the first 2 times that he went up against Flores defense with, in New England, that he got wrecked.
Oh, Flores was his kryptonite, right?
Yeah.
This was when they went up against Flores. It was like zero blitz. Jared Goff, it was like he had never seen a zero blitz in his life, and he would just throw the ball up to Stephon Gilmore in the Super Bowl.
And he had a stinking game against him in Miami. As well. It's and then Ben Johnson and Detroit sort of they became the team that figured out the Flores defense, at least as well as anybody has. But other than that, I mean, this defense has caused absolute fits for almost anybody that's gone up against it. And it's done that with, I think, a relative lack of personnel talent on the defense. Like, they have not had one of the best personnel groups in the league in the last couple of years. They've improved it, I think, year on year. And as you said, Jonathan Grenard coming in, Andrew Van Ginkel coming in, even balance with the loss of a guy like Donnell Hunter, is an upgrade, I think, and moving in the right direction. They've drafted some good players. They brought in other good free agents. As Ben says, you've got a NFL Spotlight guest tomorrow, Josh Metellus, who's also been a really important part of the defense. But there is talent on the group. But I think every year they've added more and more talent to the defense and sort of bridge the gap between what Brian Flores' defense schematically has been doing and what the group is able to do one-on-one. Fascinating this offseason because you add Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen, 2 guys who on their resumes have been 2 of the most disruptive defensive tackles in the NFL. Now, the caveat there is certainly in Allen's case, hasn't really been for a while. Hargrave's case, not coming off his best year and been injured. But if those 2 guys could recapture anything like that for him, this defense could be scary.
Well, that's why I wanted to see how Allen and Hargrave are deployed, because even Allen last year, again, the PFF grades need context. They're at 56 for Allen, 60 for Hargrave.
Sure.
I don't think either one's great in the run game, the way they've been deployed. I think Allen still has enough quicks and juice to rush the passer, and I think Hargrave does as well.
And remember, Allen, he suffered what was termed a season-ending pectoral injury, I think, at the time, and then came back, and his first game back was 9 pressures or whatever.
But he generally just doesn't hold the point really well or whatever it might be. But the Vikings, as I mentioned last year, they didn't have any great PFF grades from any of their defensive linemen, but they were still, because they stacked the box, they were still very good against the run.
Both guys are still capable, I think, of high-end play.
So this is, I think, just from a team-building standpoint, just a fascinating story to see, okay, you've got this schematic advantage against the run. You don't need to invest in great run defenders necessarily. Just send them all after the quarterback. Let the scheme take care of the run with the extra man in the box, because you could play that way. So now, but you also have the ability to just rush with 4. You can send Allen and Hargrave and my guy Jalen Redmond as part of the rotation, who was outstanding last year. And you've got Van Ginkel and you have Grenard. And, oh, by the way, you have Dallas Turner, your first-round pick last year, who you didn't really even need, was already a developmental prospect. He heads into year 2 with his length and speed and ability to move around. So you have, I would say, 5 to 6 pass rushers that defenses have to account for.
And the blitz.
Before you get into the blitz, right? Before you have Ivan Pace is one of the best blitzing linebackers, and Blake Cashman's really good in that role. Before you even get into the schematic aspect, and the reason why Metellus has been signed is because he's versatile too. He could play deep safety, play in and around the line of scrimmage, and he'll be on Spotlight with Ari Mayrov. Go check that out. Subscribe wherever you're listening to us, to NFL Spotlight, our friends and partners over here at 33rd Team. So this is one of the most fascinating defenses in the league once again.
It is. I think that front 7 in particular could be really, really good. My question for them is a corner. They bring in Isaiah Rodgers. He's solid maybe as a number 2. The number 1, who is their starter on the other side? Mekhi Blackmon, I think, is the guy that looked like the best corner they had before he got hurt and tore his ACL. He's got to come back and show he can be that guy again. Jeff Okudah is now on this circuit of just bouncing around the NFL as a former top 5 draft pick who's never been good in the NFL, but will get endless opportunities to try and rescue his career because he was such a high draft pick. I mean, if they have to start Jeffrey Okudah at one spot, that's a problem based on his career so far.
They're similar to the Packers, though, where there's not a whole lot of just pure one-on-one opportunities for the corners. So I think
that's why I think Blackmon should be the guy. I mean, I would be surprised if he's not a starting corner for them based off what we've seen from him in the NFL. Of course, you got Byron Murphy. You can play outside if they need him to.
Yeah, when we talk corners, we always put them into the two outside guys in the slot. Murphy has been one of the better slot corners in the league.
But again, I don't like him as much outside, nearly as much.
So the question I have for this defense coming in, Flores, it wasn't like this was Flores' style with New England or with Miami. Like, this has been unique to Minnesota, how often he's moving around, rushing 3, rushing 6. How does he evolve as a coordinator? And as we said, in all of the individual matchups against the Lions last year, the Lions continue to torch him. Jared Goff continues to torch him. Does he change? Does he stop blitzing? And so this year, was that a Ben Johnson scheme thing? Will they do it with? Will they still have the answers with John Morton as offensive coordinator in Detroit? So I want to see how Flores handles this season, as he has a second straight year of an influx of pass rushers here. So if they want to be more traditional, 4-man rush, play cover 2, do all the scheming on the back end instead of at the line of scrimmage, I think Flores has that ability to change the scheme even more to put pressure on the offense in a different way.
It's a fascinatingly unique defense because you've got a lot of defenses now that sort of can trace their lineage back to some degree to Rex Ryan. That kind of where you used to put Revis on an island and then be psychotic blitzing everybody else from all over the place. Flores does it slightly differently, and I don't think has any ties to Rex Ryan, but in a way it's a similar dynamic, and he's almost at the forefront of this like anti Vic Fangio type of scheme that's starting to proliferate. It's a really interesting and good defense.
All right, man. Over-under is 8.5. When we did the over-under win total show, we said, here's a team that won 14 games, returning many of the same players, but there's uncertainty at quarterback, and that has to affect the number.
Right.
It definitely makes me feel like, man, I love this defensive line. I love what KOC's done. I love the pass catchers, the improvements on the offensive line. I mean, instinctually, I'm thinking this has to go over.
Yeah.
But J.J. McCarthy, we don't really know what we're getting from J.J. first year as a starter.
We don't, but it feels like he won't be 6 games worse than Sam Darnold was last year, even, giving him full credit for how fantastic Sam Darnold was last year. I mean, that's a lot to get worse. You know what I mean? I'm going to go over, even if McCarthy is not amazing.
I will also take the over for the Vikings.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
Check the Mic is live every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so be sure to hit this subscribe button so you don't miss a thing.
The all-knowing algorithm is convinced that you'll like these videos as well, and frankly, who are we to argue?